Chapter 12, prohibiting cultivation of marijuana in all zone districts within the city, and that is our Chief of Police. Hi, Chief.
Thank you, Council President Brandel. The item that you have before you is an amendment to existing ordinance that will allow us in the Fresno Police Department to do a better job of being able to regulate this increased concern that we have in our community of marijuana grows, particularly in the inside of a residence, and it will allow us to become very consistent with what the County of Fresno has done through the Fresno County Sheriff's Department. So the item that you have, it's recommended that that the City Council approve the amendment to the current municipal code that would allow us to prohibit the cultivation of marijuana in all zones within the City of Fresno. That's both outdoor and indoor. On June 28th of 2012, Council amended our ordinance, or adopted an ordinance rather, that prohibited the outdoor growing of marijuana within the City of Fresno. And the reasons behind the prohibition at that time was as a result of the increased number of crimes that we were seeing associated with the outdoor cultivation of marijuana. We had incidents involving violence and shootings as a result of people trying to steal marijuana from some of these locations, and resulted in a significant number of complaints to our department that were investigated. Since that time, this last year, our narcotics unit has responded to 317 cases regarding the growing of marijuana, whether that be indoor or outdoor. As I said earlier, we have an ordinance in place today that prohibits the outdoor grow. However, it does not allow us to enforce anything indoors. And what we anticipate with the county's ordinance in place that prohibits both indoor and outdoor grows, that there's a potential for that to shift over to the City of Fresno, where we will start to see more marijuana being grown indoor of residents. We already have our fair share in the City of Fresno. And what happens when we get called in and we locate some of these indoor marijuana grows is that there's a significant restructuring, oftentimes walls, interior walls that are moved. There's severe damage to the residents, especially within large indoor grows. Carpets removed. They have large grow lamps that are suspended from the ceiling. And what happens eventually is that people learn that there is marijuana being grown inside of the residence, and there's a potential for home invasion robberies. In fact, we investigated 4 of those home invasion robberies this past year, where armed subjects force entry into a residence for the purpose of stealing marijuana. Now, that's reported to us. We know that there were a significant number of other home invasion robberies that occurred. In fact, we had one earlier this morning. So the need is certainly there for us to have this ban in place. And what the consequences, what's happened with our existing ordinance is that we have not had the consequences in place that would seriously deter people from growing marijuana outside. And this would allow us not only have the appropriate penalties and consequences in place to prevent outdoor, but also indoor grow of marijuana. And that penalty is for anyone that's growing marijuana within the City of Fresno, whether it be outdoor or indoor, there would be a $1,000 fine per plant, and there would also be a $100 per day fine per plant for those plants that are not removed beyond the abatement period. And the appeal process for those individuals would be before the city's hearing officer. That differs a little bit from the county. The county's appeal process is before the Board of Supervisors. And I can tell you that Kern County was the first one to adopt such an ordinance, and they have had significant success in terms of the reduction in marijuana grows within their jurisdiction. I think in the first year it went from about 40 grows to about 5. And we have members of the Fresno County Sheriff's Department that are here that, again, were the ones that took forth an ordinance in the county. and they're certainly available to answer any questions or talk about the successes that they're having with the ordinance. You'll see in here, in terms of environmental findings, there's no environmental impact. The ordinance merely prohibits additional future cultivation of marijuana indoors after the current crop year. This ordinance will differ a little bit from the counties in the fact that although the ordinance will take, once it's adopted, it will take place immediately in terms of any outdoor grows, because we already have that in place. But for any indoor grows, it would be 120 days from the time of adoption to allow the cultivation of those plants indoors. So with that, I'll open up to any comments I guess the public's going to have here.
Thank you, Chief, and thanks for traveling back to be with us this afternoon and changing your schedule. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for accommodating.
Okay. I have a couple of cards from members of the public who had already requested to speak. You don't need to turn in a card on this issue. You can come up at the end of the people who presented cards. But first up is Keith Clement. Keith, if you're in the audience, come on up, and you have 3 minutes to address this subject, and we'll work our way through this batch of cards.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I had a speech that I had prepared for the last 2 days. During your closed session, I heard a bunch of people in the audience snickering and laughing, thinking this is a joke, so I threw that speech out. I would like to ask these people what they find funny about human suffering. I am a cannabis patient. I have been a patient for 4 years. I know you cannot see any visual wounds on me, but I need to remind you not all wounds are visual. None of you know my story, and you don't know why I medicate, but it is my medicine. And I would like to ask the people in the audience that were laughing and snickering what the big joke is, because I don't find it funny.
Keith, you kind of have to address me, but good point.
I wanted to make my point. Thank you.
Okay.
This is my medicine, and I'm going to keep it. Legal or not, it's my medicine, and I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to grow it. I'm not going to be threatened or intimidated, and I'm not going to abide by any man-made law to regulate a plant given to us by nature. Thank you.
Next is Ernestina Luciano. Okay, can you tell her real quick while we're waiting for her to come? Okay, right on.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ernestina Luciano y yo quiero decirles que no aprueben la ley que tengan en las casas, porque yo he pasado por mucho mi área donde yo vivo. Me han robado 4 veces mi carro, se han metido 2 veces a mi casa y la consecuencia es la marihuana. Al lado de mi casa, enfrente había uno que estaba de marihuana, en la esquina hay otro que también cultivan marihuana. El apeste es muy fuerte todos los días. El que no es adicto ahí se hace. Yo no sabía que era la marihuana hasta ahora que la he olido. Por el mismo tiempo que usted pase por ahí, ahí está mi dirección. Pueden contactarme si quieren. He pasado muchos traumas por lo que me ha pasado en mi casa. Es difícil y no quiero. Tengo una familia que es sobreviviente de cáncer y estar oliendo todos los días la marihuana al lado de la persona. Entonces no es justo. Yo pienso que si lo necesitan las personas, que haya un lugar como una farmacia, pero que se las den ahí si lo necesitan, pero no en la casa al lado mío, porque es difícil estar oliendo la marihuana. Es difícil. Y yo eso quiero decirles, que tengan conciencia.
She says, good afternoon. Her name is Ernestina, and she lives where they cultivate. She lives near houses that cultivate marijuana, and she said it's very difficult every day. She's gotten robbed 5 times. Her car's been stolen from her neighborhood, and every day and every afternoon she smells it. She has to smell it. Her kids have to smell it, and it's so unsafe, and she's tired of it. She said that she does have family members that do have cancer, and they don't like it. And she said that she understands that people need it, but if they need it, then they can get it somewhere else and not grow it in the houses because it causes crime. And she's been a direct victim of that crime. And she would like to ask you, please do not cultivate marijuana in the houses in Fresno.
Y yo he tratado de comunicarme con la policía e incluso tengo una persona que me está ayudando, pero pues yo creo que si me matan ahí, la policía llega en un año, porque así me pasó cuando se metieron, ¿verdad? Se metieron a mi casa y pues ni modo.
She says that she's tried to talk to the police, but they show up very late. And she says by the time they probably reach there, she'll probably be dead. So she wants to please ask that you help her and that you stop this crime going on in her neighborhood because of the marijuana growth. She says thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. County Supervisor Chairman Andreas Borges.
This is so weird. Good afternoon, gentlemen, Council President. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about an issue of great importance to our community. I'd like to let everybody know that I'm not alone. I'm here in my capacity as chairman of the board of the Fresno County Board of Supervisors, but we also have representatives from the sheriff's office, from the county council's office, and beyond, if there are any questions in particular that you'd like to pose. But I'll be very brief. Council President and I had been discussing this matter for a good long while, trying to get the county and the city to take on issues of mutual interest. And while we did not have the joint meeting, let us not be dissuaded. The purpose of me being here today and working so closely with your Council President is acting on those issues of mutual interest. The marijuana issue, I think, is fairly simple. Fresno County passed its ordinance in January of this year, and we believe that this is the right direction. We're not making comment on those that need it for medicinal purposes. We're not getting into the notions of who should be using it, who should not. But the information that we've been given by the Sheriff's Office and also from the Police Department is that there are major criminal enterprises that are at play. And the amount of cultivation that is taking place is being clouded by some of the ballot initiatives and some of the regional policies that are in place right now, and we're seeking to clarify that. As I mentioned to folks, and Council President, I sent you a letter. I didn't know if it's okay if we could distribute it to your colleagues. But basically, 2013 changed things. There was a California Supreme Court decision as well as a Court of Appeals decision that essentially delegated more responsibility and more authority to the local entities, the city and the county. We believe we're acting in the best interest of our community by creating a public nuisance ordinance that would outright ban the cultivation of marijuana, obviously outdoor, but specifically here with this ordinance indoor as well. So if you have any questions, we're here, but we believe this is the best direction for our community. Do I think this is the end of the story? No. I believe that Sacramento at some point down the road will be forced to take on this issue in a more direct fashion. Heretofore, they have not. But our responsibility, mine on the board, yours as council members, is to look after the public safety of our constituencies, and that's what we're doing here today. I encourage you to adopt this counterpart legislation and help make our communities even safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Borges. And as chair, we appreciate you breaking your schedule to join us today also. Appreciate that. And we might call you back up when council gets a chance. Let's see, Brenda Linder. Is Brenda available?
Good afternoon. Thank you. First off, I want to address something that Supervisor Borges said about there being major criminal enterprises. That's correct. And my main point in speaking to you today is to point out this is over legislating. There are existing laws that are against criminal enterprises. There are existing laws against criminal gangs. We do not need local ordinances masquerading as land use policy to come into people's homes. And that's what we're attempting to do here, and that's what the county's already done with their ordinance. I understand there's problems. There's problems with every social program we've ever had in California. Workers' comp, unemployment, welfare. There's fraud and abuse within the system. There's also criminals within those systems. But we do not throw out the whole program because there are people who truly need it. We are also treading on very thin ice here, going into people's homes. I congratulate you for not writing this policy as the county did with a criminal attachment, a criminal misdemeanor remedy. I also congratulate you for not having the inspection warrant arm that the county did to theirs. That's a good start in the right direction. But the bottom line is there are laws in place that Chief Dyer and his department can use to enforce and have any illegal activity. Lawful qualified patients under the state's laws, however, can possess and grow. If you're now going to legislate under land use ordinances into people's homes, I think you're treading in a very, very dangerous area. As I said, if there are major criminal enterprises involved, if there is alteration of existing electronic or electricity coming into the homes, there are laws in place to take care of that already. We don't need to legislate that further. There are truly needy patients here who I have spoke to for 4 or 5 years. And I'm sorry, they have to go out of the area now, or they have to find an illegal source. It's creating criminals out of qualified patients. And I don't think that's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Yolanda Espina? Yolanda, are you here? Oh, right on.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Yolanda Espino y vengo de Centro La Familia. Y bueno, yo antes también no conocía por el olor a la marihuana, pero ahí donde vivo no sé de dónde viene mucho olor a marihuana. No sé si la cultiven o nada más la fumen, pero es casi siempre. Y si andan los niños ahí, mis nietos o otros niños que anden ahí están oliendo eso que después lo van a necesitar ellos, van a necesitar comprar van a necesitar consumir esa marihuana, y eso es muy peligroso porque va a haber más adictos.
She says, hello, my name is Yolanda, and where she lives, she smells it also, and she's scared for the kids because she's seen that they become addicted to it because it's been cultivated there. She's not sure if they sell it or cultivate there, but she definitely sees and senses the presence and what it causes to the youth in her neighborhood.
Gracias.
Thank you. Barbara Hunt?
Well, it's good we're talking about marijuana because I've heard the chief of police talking, and he's the chief of all the police officers association, and one time he said no to the governor. I've heard Margaret Mims speak, and I got great pride for all of the law enforcement, and she says no. Then I'm hearing that we got the Supreme Court and whoever is given local jurisdiction to make these rules for us. But what I'm saying here today, we don't need to grow it. We don't need to come out here and try to make money off of it because the privilege has been abused. We need to focus not on the $1,000 that they're going to be charged because the kids need that money in their household, which they're going to be going in to take that money away from them. It didn't say you can't smoke weed. It said don't grow it and don't cultivate it in or out your house. But I'm seeing a problem here. We're in a war. We got things going on. We don't want to be hiding stuff out here going on. Somebody come in and knock and kill up everybody. We up there asleep. So I'm thinking we got to do what's right. And that's honor the police, the sheriff's department, the Supreme Court, and everybody around here that's want to stop this here. And I'm the last one to say it. But I'm for it. Because I see what's going on. I know what's going on. They can't tell me anything about this problem right here. And it is a problem. There's money being made. It's not just for, I want to get high. Everybody is making a lot of money. And they're taking a lot of resources that we need from the police and the city police and the sheriff department and the courts up around here. Everybody's overloaded. We need that money for something else, like who's raiding our house? Who in our yard in the middle of the night when the dogs is barking? Is it Al-Qaeda? Is it somebody around here that's trying to kill us? We don't know that because we sleep. We want these people to be alert. I said, take it all away from them because I know what's going on out here. And when the chief told him in Sacramento, no, but I know what he knows was right for us because I got great respect for Chief Dyer because he's been here a long time for us, and Margaret Mims. I never go over them, and Governor Brown, even if a lot of people don't like him 3 or 4 terms running around here. But we got to look out for everybody, the whole community, because we're responsible for them. We don't need to grow no marijuana. We don't need to have no cultivation. He didn't say anything about you can't stop it. You stop it on your own. But taking the $1,000 out of your family household and from the kids, from your PG&E, from your water department, from your rent, everybody's ass is out. Excuse me. So I don't even think we should go that far. We don't need it. Take it away. What problem is it? We don't need our law enforcement around here chasing no marijuana plants. We want them to chase these robbers and these big old machine guns and stuff going around out here. Thank you very much.
All right. Melody Anthony. Melody, are you here?
Hi, I'm Melody, and I was just wanting to know, what about the people that have cards, you know, and the medical ones that need to smoke? What do we do? You know, I don't believe in growing or anything, all that, but the people that have health problems, and this is what their doctors recommend for them to have. So what do they do? Oh, okay. That's what I wanted to ask.
Well,
I mean, you know,
I'll ask that question when I get a chance. So what'll happen is you're asking us, but I'll probably ask one of our experts to comment on that.
yes, that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thanks, Melody. All right. That was our last card. But are there any other members of the public that would like to comment on this? You didn't need to turn in a card. Just come up to the microphone and you can have 3 minutes. All right. Doesn't look like it. So back up here, Councilman Brand, you're up first.
Thank you. That's my first question. Chief, my understanding, this simply adds to the indoor prohibition of growing, but anybody with a valid prescription can still possess marijuana, correct?
That's correct. This ordinance only pertains to the cultivation of marijuana. Does not pertain to a person who has a recommendation from a doctor to use marijuana, right. But it does not allow for the cultivation of that.
Now, are all the retail shops closed now in both Fresno County and Fresno City, or where do people buy marijuana?
To our knowledge, the law is pretty clear in terms of dispensaries because of people that are growing marijuana for profit. That's generally what we're seeing on these grows. That's what we've seen on dispensaries, and which is prohibited by law. And so that is, to our knowledge, there are no dispensaries in our community.
Even a nonprofit can't operate?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, we haven't seen any non-for-profits. How's that?
Okay. Well, that's I saw the last year they were raiding some place that was nonprofit, had a whole box full of cash in it. So I guess.
Yeah. And fortunately, I guess when we do the financials and look at what the revenues are versus the expenses, there's profit being made. The 95+% of the calls that we go out to, there is the grows that we are seeing are for the purpose of generating funds. They are operated by drug dealers. They are operated by gang members. The people that are frequenting those residents are people that are involved in gang activity and so forth. So it does create a significant safety issues for those residents. You heard some of them today. And it's really unfortunate that these people that are law-abiding, that are in these residential areas, are being impacted day in and day out by folks that are growing marijuana and subjecting that entire neighborhood to increased risk.
So if somebody wants to buy it legally, they have to go to San Francisco, or what cities in California is selling?
There would have to go to a location other than the city of Fresno.
How about, can you buy it, like, through Amazon, mail order? I mean,
I don't think so, but there are plenty of locations. I think you named city of San Francisco.
Okay.
Openly distributes it. The city of Oakland. There are a number of those folks that have made it okay to do so, and perhaps they're not seeing what we've seen in the valley in terms of the criminal activity associated with it when it's grown in a residential area, but we have.
this would be consistent with Fresno County?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And state law would be, is there any challenges going on cities like Fresno or Bakersfield that have imposed these restrictions?
I think I'll let our city attorney talk about the recent one.
Yes, the California Supreme Court has said that the Compassionate Use Act simply decriminalizes the use of medical marijuana for certain purposes if you do it the right way under state law. It expressly said that local jurisdictions retain the authority to regulate it when it comes to dispensaries and the cultivation.
Okay. So if somebody gets caught with 6 plants, it's a 120-day grace period, correct?
Well, if it is an outdoor grow, once the ordinance is adopted, it will take effect immediately.
So if it's indoor grows, 120 days.
Yes, from the date of the ordinance passes, they'll have 120 days.
So let's say you get a complaint from a neighbor. You go out to somebody's house after this time has expired. They've got 4 plants. That's a civil or a criminal. It's a civil, right?
Yes, unless it could be criminal if during the course of the investigation by our narcotics unit that we can determine that the purpose of them growing those plants is for the purpose of selling them, right, then it would become a criminal matter. And that goes with all of them. But if we can't demonstrate that, and even though they have a recommendation to be able to possess or use marijuana, they would still be in violation, and they would be subject to that fine.
Okay, but unless they're doing it for resale purposes, basically it's a civil, $1,000 per plant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, what happens if, I know they've discussed it in Sacramento, if Sacramento brings forward a Colorado type, we're going to legalize marijuana across the entire state? Is that to basically trump everything we've done?
Yeah, state law would trump,
it
or is that land use?
It depends exactly what that law would say. It really depends.
And by implementing this policy, both the existing one and the addition of indoor, will that save your guys' time that in terms of allocating officer resources to chase down, and I've seen some of the stuff in the papers where one guy killed somebody over a marijuana deal. Will that save you guys time and resources?
It will, over time, I believe it will put less of a strain on our resources as well as code enforcement in having to go out to these locations, largely as a result of the deterrent effect of the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Baines.
Thanks, Council President. And actually, and I don't know if my questions will be to you, Chief, and or Doug, or maybe a combination of both, but it's almost a little bit along the lines of Lee's, some of Councilmember Brand's idea. And of course, most of you guys in here know that, of course, in general, I would support something like this. But I just want to kind of make sure I understand, for those people that legally have a right to possess marijuana for a medicinal purpose, and Lee, I may have missed when you covered this, but what are their options right now in Fresno?
They would have the option of going out and purchasing that marijuana from another location outside of the city or the county of Fresno.
Okay, so So as it stands now, really for the population of medicinal users, there's nowhere in Fresno. There would be nowhere in Fresno for them to purchase the marijuana.
That would be correct.
Okay. Doug, where are we going to end up with our dispensary ordinance, one way or the other? So let me say, from the criminal aspect, I completely support what the police department is trying, what you're suggesting, completely. I know that the problem that the criminal enterprise of marijuana causes for our city, and the use of law enforcement and code enforcement and just city resources overall. But just to put that aside for a moment, what about our legal customers? What do we have any plans to I mean, because I suspect that that's not going to prevent them from still trying to buy in Fresno. It'll just make it a criminal act for them to engage in the purchase, right?
Well, under our city code, if this is passed, you definitely could not grow it in the city of Fresno, and you cannot have a dispensary. Now, state law allows for certain other methods of distribution, the limited collectives or a caregiver to obtain it and share it with the person that is using it.
Now, where would that caregiver, on behalf of a medicinal user, obtain it in Fresno? How would they do that legally?
They would have to have somebody essentially go outside the jurisdiction to obtain it.
Okay. I want to ask this gentleman here, Chief, if you don't, I want to, sir, in the white, yes, you in the white shirt. I wanted to just, no. And let me just, sir, I'm calling you up to ask questions, and it'll be for a limited time, so you don't get a new 3 minutes. It'll be to my question and answers over with you, okay? I'm just curious, what would you do, or what, if we adopt this, and I have a feeling we are, I just want to be honest with you, what are your options for, because you seem to be a legitimate medicinal user?
Currently, I am growing. I have 4 immature plants that I've just started my flower cycle, so I have about 8 weeks before they're fully done. That's under the California state limit. Right now, as far as obtaining my medicine, I have to drive to Bakersfield, to a legal collective down there, and obtain quality tested medicine that I trust, other than the own that I grow.
Okay. So how often are you having to make that trip to Bakersfield?
With funds permitting, because it is expensive with gas the way it is, and just the cost of the medicine alone, twice a month.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So I think what would our options be, Doug, for the medicinal users? How legally would we prevent, that population from having to drive to to Bakersfield or anywhere else to legally purchase marijuana? Is there any options that we're even contemplating that would? Well, I want to make sure we can deal with the criminal element on the one hand, but there's also a legitimate population that exists, and I want to make sure we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So I'm just wondering, what other options would we have that would be under our purview to do?
Well, we already outlawed the dispensaries. Those are the storefront operations that are simply selling it to customers. Right. And you couldn't grow. The state law still provides for certain types of collectives where people are truly sharing in the process of obtaining it and sharing it with others. If it were done correctly under state law, there is still that potential.
So could a collective happen here in Fresno? No, right?
A collective, well, it depends. It can't be a storefront, make money kind of operation. That's a dispensary.
Okay.
A collective is a small group of people that are sharing the responsibility.
Could that happen in Fresno?
Under state law, it could, yes. Okay.
Okay, so there's an option. So I think what just for the record, I'm very much in support of not allowing criminal enterprises to thrive under the guise of legitimate marijuana grows. I mean, I get that, and I am absolutely against that. But at the same time, if, you know, I don't want to just dismiss an entire population, however small of a minority it may be, that does rely on marijuana for medical purposes. That's legitimate. State law said it's legitimate, and you know, quite frankly, I think it's legitimate too. So I'm going to be supportive of this item today, Chief, because I do believe in that. But I do think that we as a body at least need to figure out a way to allow the legitimate population to medicate. So I think it's an ongoing discussion, but for this purpose here, I don't think not supporting this wouldn't get us where we wanted to be, because we need to allow the police department to have the proper tools to shut down the enterprises. But we do need to come, and it's not the police department's job to figure out how medicinal users can continue to use that. I understand that, and this legislation is from the police department, but it is our job to possibly figure that out. So I would want to continue this dialogue, but I'll be supportive of the item today for the criminal element of it, but with the understanding that we do need to be looking at legitimate ways. Thank you.
Councilman Shong.
City Attorney, I know that we have the state law with those parameters. Where does it conflict with the federal law?
Well, under federal law, any possession of marijuana is illegal.
Okay, so although we as a state have these conditions in terms of when it is appropriate to be able to medicinally use marijuana, the federal law is pretty clear, correct?
Well, yes, the federal law is clear, and the law formerly was in the state of California that it was illegal also.
Right.
All the state did through the Compassionate Use Act is to say, for certain uses, we will not prosecute that under state law. It is not criminal under state law.
Okay. So under those conditions, the state won't take an action on the individual or the parties that's engaged, correct?
That's correct, under state law.
Right. But for the federal law, it doesn't make a difference.
It's federal agencies could prosecute any possession of marijuana.
Correct. So even if our residents here have the card, the dispensary or whatever, if the federal law or a federal agency decides, now they can come in and just pretty much says this is against federal law and put you in a particular situation, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The reason I asked that, because there was an effort, especially within our Southeast Asian community, when the district attorney from the western part of the United States came in and asked for our office help to do outreach within our community, because there was they saw an increase in terms of those activities, want to make sure that there was an educational outreach, and it was very confusing for our community, very confusing, because many of them went through the process to acquire the appropriate paperwork and the necessary documents to allow them to fit those categories. But when the federal law came and started to impact the community more, there had to be an important understanding of the differences of the two. And not that I don't support our efforts and for this particular position. I just think it puts us locally in a very tough predicament when the state and the feds don't agree on what is the tool. Whether we choose to be legalizing those parameters or not, it would provide a clearer direction for us as local entity on how to try to provide those services. I also do agree with Member Baines that there is that population that I believe through the medical necessities qualify. So I'm not sure how to best address that one. To me, for the larger, that conflict between the state and the feds, that at the end of the day, no matter what the state does, the federal law trumps whatever we try to do. That's, to me, is really the picture. but the minority population is extremely important as well. And I don't know, and I know that we did away with the dispensaries, and I don't know, and maybe that's a continued dialogue, but maybe there's some type of version where we can control the number of dispensaries or what is allowed, and have some type of supervision from our entity here. Keep it within a certain amount of numbers, and so that's where I haven't I don't think we've had those deep discussion yet, and to say that a population would have to drive 2.5 hours or 3 hours, but to get the medicinal uses, but also I just want to let you know the feds doesn't allow you anyway, but that's interesting, the dilemma that I'm going through with that. And so I want to make sure that our public safety folks are given the resources or the tools to do what they have to do, limit in terms of, because we're stretched out of all the other things that we're committed to do. But City Attorney, I think we need to further discuss that side of it, how if that's where the city looks as policymakers here, looks to move and try to address the minority population, that I think it's worth the public discussion and debate on that. So that's where I think maybe the future discussion, and I would love to have the discussion with you and see how that would move and drive our concerns from our other community groups on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President, City Council. I guess a year or two ago, I was happy to support the outdoor ban on the growing of marijuana. In our city, and in my district, I've had a chance to actually go out to homes where there was a pot farm growing next door. And I've seen firsthand and smelled firsthand and experienced firsthand the struggles that homeowners, residents go through when there's a pot farm growing next door. One of the constituents that I had the pleasure of visiting with was afraid to put her nose over the side of the fence, but she suggested that I do it, and so I did anyway, and I looked over the fence, and sure enough, there were a lot of marijuana plants growing over there. And she told the story of how when it's harvest time, and they chop the bottoms of the plants and to harvest them, that it creates spores and seeds that go over the fence and create allergies and poison her family. And that was of great concern to me. We also had a block party. Every year we do at the corner of Clay and Bond in the 7th District. And at this block party there was, in full view of the bounce house that PD's running, or the face painting, whatever it was, and there was a praise band there, and the block parties are always very successful, and I always support them. Within full view there was the plywood boards in the front yard. And over the tops of the plywood boards were the tops of the marijuana plants. So here in our community, in full view of police and code enforcement and church and city council and these families, is the specter of these outdoor grows and the sickness that they bring to their neighbors when they're harvested. And so that's why I supported the outdoor ban on marijuana in our city, because I believe that it was harmful to people. Today, I'm not going to support this ban. And a message for the people who came and spoke, the ladies from the neighborhoods. There is a remedy for you existing right now. I mean, the Fresno Police Department is taking out marijuana grows at the rate of 1 a day, 317 last year, and 5,000 pounds of marijuana seized, and some of those were indoor operations. So the reason why I'm going to oppose today is because I already believe that there is a remedy on the books. If you have marijuana grows, whether this passes or fails today, if you have marijuana grows in your neighborhood, we can take those out using our friends from code enforcement and our friends from the police department. If that smell is coming into your home, we have a remedy for you, and we can clean those up for you. And so I will be in opposition to this today and urge a no vote from the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. I think there are qualified patients who have needs, and the previous ordinance that we're addressing today address those needs. Unfortunately, at this point, we cannot address those needs at the expense of the majority of the citizens who are subjected to the perils of growing marijuana and the criminal activity that goes with it. So I think the people that really should be thanked, if you will, by those that are qualified are the growers, the abusers, that not only abuse the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law that's in existence now to benefit you. So those profiteers and growers, with their abuse of this process, have resulted in what's taking place today. So I support the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Dyer? And maybe it's a twofold question, and I don't know, I didn't hear the discussion that the Board of Supervisors had on this particular issue, but you know, there's no question that that there are individuals that do use the marijuana for medicinal purposes. Has there been any discussions with and the issue, of course, is being the groves, you know. And has there been any discussions, like with the Fresno Madera Medical Society, in terms of those the doctors that say, you know, this is the best remedy for you for relief or whatever is the smoking, where they would set up a single dispensary instead of having a you know, like this gentleman having to drive all the way to Bakersfield, and I don't know if that we couldn't use them as part of this discussion to try and help out those that truly need it.
Well, I think at some point the state of California is going to have to intervene with some type of a legislation that does allow for that or regulates that. But up until that occurs, you know, it would not be able to exist today under our current ordinance unless I'm wrong in this fashion.
No, that's correct.
So at some point, maybe that discussion could occur.
Well, I don't know why they couldn't be part of the discussion now, even just to, you know, work towards something like that and see if some legislation, because I mean, I know individuals that do take it for medicinal purposes, and they're having difficulty with having to drive to other areas of Fresno County just to purchase it for medicinal purposes. And I just I'm wondering about Fresno Madera Medical Society. That's all. Just
sure.
They I don't know why they couldn't come up with something in that regard. Okay. Just wondering about conversations. Thanks.
I guess just going to make a few brief comments. Thanks, Chief, for coming out again. And I see we have our county sheriffs in the room with us. We thank you. Sheriff Mims expressed to me that she's supportive of this legislation, and so I appreciate she couldn't be here today. I thank everybody that spoke. Listening to my fellow council members talk about this, I guess I would say that it seems like a subject we were talking about an hour ago, which is correctly identifying a problem and then addressing that problem. This is a law enforcement thing to me, and so I'm going to be supportive of that. But I would also be supportive of my fellow council members bringing forth legislation or a policy to deal with people in our community that might need this medicinally. Okay, so for me, those are two different things, and I fully open to that discussion for sure. But today, for me, I've got my police department saying that this is what they need, this is what they feel is the correct thing for our community. I'm going to be supportive of that. As a matter of fact, I'm done with my comments, so I'm just going to make a motion to approve the police department's recommendation. No, you didn't. So, a motion and a second by Councilman Brand. I don't see anybody else punched up, so I think it's time for a vote. Let's do an electronic vote. We haven't done one of those in a while. So, yes is to support the recommendation. All right, let's vote. That work? All right. Motion passes 6-1. Thank you very much, Chief, for that presentation. Thank you, everybody, for your participation.